So this episode's going to be a little bit different than the normal episodes. I'm going to start open up the curtain, letting you in on my personal life. And I think it's still going to connect with you because even if you don't relate to that personal thing that I share with you, hopefully you will relate to the thing that I've learned and how I use that in coaching and how I use it in serving others. And hopefully you will be on the receiving end of that. So you've probably read the intro, or you saw or read the thumbnail, or you read the title of this episode. And so you know that this is about mitral valve prolapse. If you have had mitral valve prolapse, or you know someone, or maybe you had to study it, then you know that mitral valve prolapse, also we call it MVP. When you have it and you're dealing with it day to day, you don't feel like an MVP all the time. It's something that you have to take in consideration. And what I'm going to share with you today is I'm going to share with you how it affects my life personally, but then how I use that, and I use it to go help others. I have to coach myself. I have to have my support team around me. Most of the members of my support team know I have it. I try to educate them on what to look for. And then from there, they get to pour back into me and help me when they start seeing things that are differently. So mitral valve prolapse is when the mitral valve of the heart has a defect, and what happens is it doesn't close, and it allows blood to flow backwards, back into the left atrium. What happens with this is, depending on your severity, you can have a mild case, you can have a severe case. And just so you know, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm just speaking as someone who has the condition. They found out that I had this condition, how I was made aware of it was, I was made aware back in 2011. And what had happened at this time was I had suffered an anxiety attack, and I didn't realize what was happening to me. So as I was suffering from this anxiety attack, of course, I'm freaking out. I'm thinking I'm having a heart attack. I'm on Google looking around, and I realized that everything that I'm going through shows symptoms of a heart attack. So I stop what I'm doing. I drive myself to the hospital. I don't even tell my wife. I go check myself into the hospital, let them know that I'm having this funny feeling in my chest, and they start hooking me up to things, and realize that nothing is really going on with my heart other than I'm having what I now know is an anxiety attack. And so my heart is beating fast, but the EKG is showing that I have a normal rhythm, although it's beating fast. What happened after this was they still had to try to figure out what exactly was going on. So sent me to a cardiologist. The testing that was done in the cardiologist's office realized that's how we found that I had a case of mitral valve prolapse. So mitral valve prolapse also can be called a heart murmur. A lot of times when they are checking, when they have that little thing that they put in their ears and put on your chest, and they're listening to your heartbeat. Sometimes they can hear it. It makes a sound, like a clicking sound, and any nurses and doctors who are watching, you can go ahead and put in the comments, or any of you guys who are more familiar with what that sound can sound like, you go ahead and feel free to put it in the comments below. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you're listening to it on podcast, then you can go over to YouTube and comment if you feel like you need to do that. They look and they see, sometimes you can hear it. Well, with my case, that didn't happen. So they found it in the cardiologist's office, and they made me aware of what that meant. What they didn't make me aware of is that there's a mitral valve syndrome that comes with that. And that syndrome means that you start having these. The best way I can explain it is when there's something going on with your heart that's not quite right, then your nervous system realizes that it's not right. I think one way that in my brain I've resolved this is, like, if you've ever had a car, and I don't know if cars do this anymore, But if you had a car that has like a turn signal light off, like if it went out, then every signal light, when you ever put on a signal light, say the left one's out, but you put on the right one, well, it'll start blinking fast. And that lets you know that there's an issue somewhere with your signal lights. Well, the body kind of does that when it comes to the heart, at least mine did. So what was happening was I was having this fight or flight response because my body realized that something wasn't right with my heart. And my body would go into, I would have these other things that I now know is the mitral valve syndrome. So a lot comes with that. And again, I'm not a medical professional. I just know from the research that I did trying to figure out what was going on with me that I started having all these other things. And sometimes it takes the form of mood swings. Sometimes it takes the form of extreme hunger, or sort of like, I think what it amounts to, where you can have like sugar crashes, or and all of a sudden you need to really eat something sweet, or you feel like you're going to get dizzy and possibly pass out. There was times where I had to go urinate often because of just all the fight or flight response. Things like that happen, and you can do your own search on Google and find this extensive list of things that happen with the mitral valve syndrome that comes with mitral valve prolapse. Well, I didn't really know all that until I realized that things just weren't right. Something else was going on. So I started doing research on mitral valve prolapse and all the things, and that's how I found the syndrome. Well, because of that, of course, I have to still interact with people. So I had to learn how to coach myself. And one of the techniques that I actually used was I would have on my phone the website with the mitral valve, I can't remember exactly what it was called, but I think it was located in Birmingham, Alabama, which is close to where I live. It's south of where I live. So what I would do is leave that up, and anytime I experienced that, instead of going into deeper anxiety or having just this more of the fight or flight response happening, which causes anxiety and rapid heart rate, what I would do is I would look at this list, and I would see that this is all part of it. And that would put me at ease, knowing that this is just part of it. I would calm myself down and then just work through it, and then it would resolve itself. I also realized things like caffeine, different types of caffeine, different other types of stimulants could help, or could help exacerbate that too. So I didn't realize that. And so I had to make some lifestyle shifts and things like that. There's the mindset part of it happens when you have to realize what's happening. And so because of realizing what's happening, I had to mentally work through that and tell myself, this is all part of mitral valve prolapse. I'm not going to die. This is just part of it. Do breathing techniques, do these other things, look at the list of items that come along with the syndrome. It's going to be okay. Also, I am a Christian, and so prayer and meditation around my faith, prayer, that helped me also. And of course, that was a lot of times where I started first. These techniques is what I had to use to get myself through it when I was by myself, or I didn't have anything else that could help me through it. Now, there's times where my wife will identify, hey, I noticed this pattern. Do you think you're having an episode, a mitral valve episode? I could stop and realize, okay, yeah, this might be happening. So now I have to kind of watch some things that I'm taking in. And those maybe there's certain people that I don't go around, because sometimes people are a little heavier, and so that would cause a stress response, which wouldn't help my situation. It would actually help bring on the mitral valve syndrome. All these boundaries that I had to put in place, and the awareness that I had to have, and the techniques that I had to put in place to work with the mitral valve syndrome, and understanding the condition, and understanding that it doesn't have to be fatal. It doesn't have to be debilitating, because there is a part of it that I exercise, I work out 5 days a week. So there's a part of it where I can't do what I used to do because of the mitral valve malfunctioning. Things like heavy breathing, things like heart palpitations, which does not feel good. Of course, it feels like something is wrong, of course. Things like getting tired quicker, things like that were starting to show up. And of course, if I let it go too far, then what would happen would be that mentally it would make me feel like I'm less than, right? So I had to be aware of that and realize that's just part of it. I can still do this. I can still accomplish this. And I'm going to still do things even though I have this. And I'm not saying that has to be your story, but I wanted to share with you how I personally have used mitral valve prolapse and just because I have it, I don't let it alter my life in so many ways. I just add other things into my life, like the accountability team that I have around me that knows that I struggle with it, and they know to look for certain signs. The type of foods that I take in, I keep a gallon of water around me almost all the time so that I can stay hydrated. I still exercise, and I watch the stress. I watch the environments that I go into, and as much as I can control those, I do, so that I can take care of myself. Where I'm going with this is that you may be struggling with something that may be your mitral valve prolapse, and maybe it may be more severe. And if that is something that you're dealing with, I'm sorry you're going through that. I do want to challenge you too, is to not let it get you down 100%. You are a person, and I know that you do have to deal with it. You have to work through it. But period. You have to work. I know that it will get you down, and that's something you have to work through, period. I want to encourage you to just change your view a little bit and realize, you know what, this thing I'm struggling with, like for me, is mitral valve prolapse. I can't have this much caffeine anymore. I can't have these particular things. I'm going to start feeling this type of thing, but I can still do this. I'm going to still do this. I'm going to drink at least a gallon of water a day. I'm going to still stay active. I'm going to have people around me that are going to help me with this. I'm going to remind myself to stay positive and to watch the environments that I go into, to watch what I'm taking in, whether it's listening or visual. I'm going to, as a Christian, I'm going to rely on the word, the scripture, and my church family, my gospel-centered family, my gospel-centered friends. I'm going to set boundaries, in other words, and I'm going to open up in other ways. So hopefully this helps you, and I want to thank you for listening. If you're still with me at this point, if you are struggling with mitral valve prolapse, you need someone to help walk with you through it, feel free to reach out to me. My contact info, you can get to me from the description below this episode. If not, then you can reach me at Brian, with an I, BRIAN, at brianrobinsoncoaching.com. It's that simple. And send me a note if you are someone who needs help, or even if you just want to say, hey, I have it too, I'm with you, or hey, I need someone in my corner because I don't know what to do with it. Feel free, I'm here for you. Feel free to reach out to me, and I would do my best to reach back out to you as soon as I can. So thank you for listening. If you're watching this from YouTube, please like, share, subscribe, comment, share with someone who can be helped by this.